Hello, my name is Gertrude, and welcome to another episode of the Tech Girl podcast. Today's conversation is one of those that doesn't need hype because it's so rich in history and knowledge. My guest, Claudia Brind-Woody, former Managing Director and VP at IBM, a global executive board member, and a long-standing advocate for the LGBTQ+ for inclusion in tech and business. In this conversation, we talk about why inclusion really matters in senior leadership, and in those rooms, why it's still good to be good at something, because that's what they look at when they're having those conversations. We also explore AI as a tool and not an answer, the difference between optics and substance, and why the real diversity dividends is about showing up and not just hiring talent, but putting them on the playing field. Giving underrepresented leaders the same opportunity to fail as others. As I said, it's a rich conversation. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Tech Girl podcast under the theme The Diversity Dividend. Today's guest is Claudia Brind-Woody, former Managing Director and VP of IBM, Global Executive Board Member and passionate advocate for LGBTQ+ inclusion in tech and business. With decades of leadership experience across global markets, she has seen firsthand how inclusion drives innovation and resilience. I'm really excited to have her on the podcast because we are exploring what inclusion means in tech today. And I can't wait to unpack the knowledge that she has to give us, and truly excited for this conversation. Claudia, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, Gertrude.
That's amazing. I'm really happy to have you as well. And I just want to know, you've had experience in the tech industry for a very long time. And I guess at the back of my mind, there's a lot of themes that I would like us to explore.
Sure.
But maybe if you just look back onto like your career and trajectory, is there any moment that shaped your commitment to inclusion in tech?
I can't think of a seminal moment because there were many moments, right? And I was fortunate enough to come into IBM as a professional hire with background previously in sport and business and telecommunications. And when I came into IBM, I was really fascinated to understand we had a long history of diversity and inclusion. We had equal pay for equal work in the 1940s.
Wow.
We helped change the laws in North Carolina and Kentucky in the late 50s, early 60s, when they wanted to bring IBM manufacturing to their states. And we refused to go until they changed the laws to have not have separate drinking fountains and separate toilets for blacks and whites. We said all IBMers are to be treated equally. And so having that really courageous and long history, and there are many, many more examples of that, really gave me a platform in tech to be authentic, first of all, right? And bring others along with me.
Yes. That's so amazing. And I think that's something that has been very evident and admirable about you, is that you're very committed to bringing others along with you, which is what we need and, have been craving for. And one thing that stands out for me is also your commitment to leadership within technology. We know the conversation around how it's not diverse enough to start with the field itself. But when it comes to leadership, that's even worse. And the higher you go, the lesser it is diverse. Maybe from your perspective and looking at it from the rooms that you've been, what are some of the genuine inclusion conversations that happen in those rooms that not most of us are purview to?
Well, I think, first of all, it starts with the individual person. Where one of the things I tell everybody, be very good at something. Right? Be very good at something. And then it's really easier to get a seat at the table when you're the expert at whatever, whether it's AI. I tell every young person I know, learn AI, right?
Yeah.
This is your future. And it's important for that as a starting point, because then it really is about finding top teammates. And I use sports metaphors all the time, but finding really blue chip athletes to bring to your team. And what you want is to start with the skills, right? And having diverse backgrounds, having diverse perspectives. All of the research shows that that's really important. But to go more specifically to your question, in those rooms of leaders, it's important to have allies. It's really important to have allies, because I can't tell you how many times as a woman, people have talked over me or ignored my comment. And 5 minutes later, the guy down the table said exactly the same thing. And they go, "Oh, John, that was a brilliant idea." And I've sat in those meetings, and having an ally, I've actually had this happen to me. I have an ally who was sitting on the other side of me saying, "No, John, that was Claudia's idea. She said it 5 minutes ago."
Oh, that's amazing.
And, having that kind of respect for each other, really, building the kind of trust for people to be allies with you, is really important in those senior conversations. Another thing that's really important in that inclusion discussion, and I've had this happen as well as we've looked at slates for the promotions for executives. I've had people say, "Okay, neither one of the candidates have everything. For him, it's a stretch assignment, and over here for her, well, let's let her have another experience at the current level, so she'll really be ready the next time an opening comes up." And I have stepped in and said, "No, you have to allow the woman or diverse candidate to have the same opportunity to fail as we give our majority guys, right? The white guys in the room. We have to give everybody the same opportunity to fail, to stretch, to really make a difference, right? We have to not say, "Oh, Claudia can't do that because she's a woman." No, Claudia may not be able to do it because she doesn't have the skill set yet. But if somebody else doesn't have the skill set either, then the opportunity for both of those people or each of those people to be able to stretch, have a stretch assignment, is really important. So the notion of equal opportunity to fail is a really important one at those senior conversations.
I like that, equal opportunities to fail, because research has shown that men are usually hired for potential, while women are hired based on past experience, and the same goes for promotions. And I like to think that those are the discussions that you bring forward, that we should have equal opportunities to fail. And also you mentioned that you have to be really good at something. And in a previous interview that I watched, you also talked about the importance of asking for what you want. And if I tie those together, what happens if these three are happening, but still they can only be one position? And how do you, as the person that has the opportunity to uplift, handle it? Or on the receiving end, let's say me, how do I then ask for that position if there's only one? Which can happen in...
Yeah, absolutely. And they're two different conversations, right? You ask two very different questions. So as the person looking to decide between two really good candidates, right? Part of what you make a decision also on is fit in a team, and being smart enough as a senior executive to understand that if everybody is like me and if everybody has the same skills as I do, I'm not going to have a high performance team. And if you've seen what I've said in the past, I use team sports as an example to teach people about diversity and inclusion, because because I ask people, what's your favorite team sport? And if they're American, they'll say American football, baseball, basketball. If they're British, they'll say proper football, and they mean soccer in American terms. And, they'll say hockey in the Nordics. Everybody has one. And I ask them who the most important player is, and everybody has that too, whether it's a quarterback or a pitcher or a point guard or center or a striker. I mean, everybody knows what they think is the most important person. And then I ask them, okay, I'll give you a team of all quarterbacks, and I'll take a team that has all of the skilled positions, the running backs, the offense, the defense, the special teams. We're going to play each other. Which of us is going to win? And the answer, they look at me like, oh dear, light bulb moment. You are, Claudia. And yeah, I'm saying I'm going to win every time. And that's where leaders need to be insightful as they look at how they create high performance teams. Because having like team members over and over and over again, you're going to get groupthink, you're going to get underperformance, because you're missing the diversity of thought, the diversity of experience, the diversity of lived experiences, as well as work experience. And the other notion is it's not enough to have the diverse team, but you got to put them on the playing field. Because if they're sitting on the bench, you're not going to have that high performance team either. That's the inclusion part. That's the inclusion part. You've got to put talent on the playing field. You've got to have talent at the board table or the work group or whatever it is. So that's the inclusion, is being able to access that talent. It's not enough to just have it. You've got to be able to access it. So that's part one of the question. Part two was, what do you do to ask for it? And that's where one of the things I've learned along the way is it's not what you know, it's not even who you know in the traditional saying, but rather it's who knows what you know. Who in your team, in your organization, in your, sphere of influence knows what you know? Who knows that you have a business degree? Who knows that you have 3 languages that you speak? Who knows that you have this particular internship experience or whatever? And unless you as the individual allow yourself to create a network of people who know what you know, they can't be your advocate, because they don't know how good you are.
That's really amazing. Who knows what you know? How do you communicate that, though, in a team setting and the team dynamics, without maybe coming off too stuck up, maybe, or too bossy, too much, pretty much, or too braggy? How do you communicate it?
Well, there are lots of different ways to do it. In my experience at IBM, coming in as a professional hire, I didn't grow up in IBM, right? So people really didn't know me. And we had a tradition called executive interviews, where we could sit down, we could book 30 minutes with any executive we wanted to talk with. Now, of course, that was subject to their calendar availability, or if they had a client meeting, you got moved around a lot, but you could get 30 minutes of their time. And so I wanted this one person I really admired earlier in my IBM career and said, would like to have an executive interview. I came in and brought in my resume or CV and said, Mike, you don't know me very well. I came in as a professional hire. Here's my resume. Here's my CV. And it's on a one-on-one basis, right? So it's not like you're bragging or anything like, it's just saying, I really want you to know what I know. And he went, Claudia, you got a law degree. Yeah, I do. He said, I didn't know that. I've been thinking about setting up this intellectual property, organization in this particular division. Would you be interested? And I'm saying, absolutely. It was one of the most fun jobs I ever had. But it happened because I took the time to get to know and get people I admired to get to know me, to get to know them, and for them to get to know me. you can ask for that. That's part of what you have the ability to do in your journey. Is that's part of asking for what you want. I want you to know me. And it doesn't have to be in the public team setting.
That's really good advice. I have taken it down because if you have that opportunity to present yourself, I guess it gives you as well the opportunity to really speak about what it is that you know and have the right people listen to you.
Yes.
Yeah. And also that ties into how then you moved in IBM and the VP position that you had within IP, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. Now we've talked a bit more about like inclusion and team dynamics, and I just want to hear from your perspective when it comes to global talent and equity. The conversation has always been around the US and Europe and also India. I will single out India and, China sometimes. But what are the opportunities of allowing other emerging innovation hubs like the ones we're seeing out of Africa, Latin America, and other parts of Asia, which are not China and India? How then can we have them recognized in the global economy?
Well, it will depend on, again, what those hubs are doing, right? India started out really focusing on services, China on manufacturing, and I'm grossly oversimplifying.
Yeah.
And they had that specialty, right? And they did it at a cost point that was useful for big corporations to consider. So just like any other aspect, these hubs need to be able to articulate their value proposition. Wow, we speak 6 languages here. We have AI skills. We're trained. Here are our certifications, right? Part of that is really looking at what matters on the global stage.
Yes.
Things like certifications, things like emerging technologies, things like cybersecurity or AI or war, right? Those are the kinds of things that matter, as well as the day-to-day running of big companies, right?
Yes.
And that's what the services piece in India really provided. Testing and application development and systems integration, those types of things. So just like everybody as a people, we need to have a value proposition.
Yes.
So those hubs need to be able to articulate their value proposition to the larger companies. And part of it is finding that niche and, making sure that gets articulated, which is much easier in today's internet world than it was 20 years ago, right?
And indeed it is, but also doesn't it need some level of collective voice?
That depends, right?
Okay.
That depends. So collective voices often come through countries like India, right?
Yes.
However, within India, there's an awful lot of competition. So, having your own voice as a company within India is important. Having the Indian government have tax laws and other laws that enable the collective to be successful is important. So both of those things are important, and on the individual company basis, having your own value proposition is really key.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I would like us to also sit a little bit on the inclusion part, and whatever you're comfortable with, I would like us to draw deeper on diversity as we know it, the backlash that it's received recently, and how you have over and over proven that that is a good thing, even when you use the sports analogy, and you can see like it makes sense because it doesn't take a lot to understand how it makes sense. What would you say would be a good way of looking at inclusion without all the PR statements and the controversy that it's seeing today?
So, backing up just a little bit of the controversy today, is I think it starts with misinformation. And then misinformation leads to fear.
Yes.
Fear leads to hate, and hate leads to violence. So it is working at the level of information or misinformation to try to help people understand that, we have more in common in our humanity than we are different.
Yes.
And understanding things like privilege, and people go, oh, privilege, that's a really lightning rod conversation, and I try to help people understand the concept of privilege in thinking about privilege is something you didn't earn. Okay, so I didn't earn the fact I'm white. I didn't earn the fact I'm female, right? I didn't earn the fact I have hazel eyes, or I'm right-handed, or all of these things,
Yes.
right? Or that I'm in the LGBTQ plus community. That was something that is existential, right, for me. The color of my skin, the family, the socioeconomics I was born into, I didn't earn that. I didn't earn that. The country I was born in, I didn't earn that either. So part of it is helping to take concepts like privilege and take some of the some of the fear away from having that conversation, such that you're thinking, oh yeah, I really didn't earn the fact that I'm an American, or that I was born here. So how does that help me look at people who are different than me, right? What they did earn was their college degree. What they did earn was their, experience at work. What they did earn was, that expertise they've developed. And helping to distinguish between those two helps look at inclusion in a different way, where we're saying, hang on, let's look at including people because of what they've earned or haven't earned, as the case may be, right?
Yeah.
So as opposed to things that they didn't earn, white male, American.
Where you were born.
Yeah, right, where you were born, all of those things. So if you can change the nature of the conversation to say, let's look at what people have earned. And have that as, wow, I want that top talent on my team, because that's a blue chip athlete, right? That's somebody who's worked hard, is absolutely fit in technology. They're up to speed on security and AI and all these things. Then it doesn't matter about the categories of diversity that have become this lightning rod for people. What does matter, though, for us in those categories is to make sure we continue to have community. Okay?
Yeah.
Community is what will keep us going.
Yes.
Community is what will help us remember that we are valuable, that we are, important, that we are human, and our humanity is as important as the next person beside you, right?
Yes.
So it's important to have that kind of community structure, whether it's sponsored by a company or we do it informally. Having community around us makes us much more powerful, much stronger, more authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. definitely. Community does help a whole lot. It's just, I can't help but wonder, like, what happened? Because not many years ago, I think we were at a point where we did recognize and were able to acknowledge that privilege exists and differences exist, and we're moving forward and we are united, only to not have that narrative anymore. So I guess my question is, what do you think happened?
Well, the politics happened, right?
Yeah,
Politics happened,
yeah,
and companies work in their enlightened self-interest with their shareholders. They're trying to just survive
yeah,
the current state of the politics right now. When university funding is pulled, or nonprofits lose their funding, or right, that kind of threat to their mission really makes them go underground
yeah,
and change the words. Now, is it really just changing the words? And that's what I'm hoping. Okay, we're not going to use the word diversity or inclusion. We're going to use the word, human development. We're
yeah,
going to use the word high performance team building. We're going to use, other phrases that, mean what we've been trying to do with diversity and inclusion. So, and I think my observation anyway so far is that companies are just trying to fly under the radar of the current political situation,
yeah,
and they still value their top talent. They still value the differences in their team, the diversity of their team. They want to include their team. They're just using, okay, we're going to do top talent development. We're just going to use other phrases around that. And so it's important for us now as a community of difference to look at substance over form, right? Form is using the words. Substance is, what are they doing? Are they developing? Are they hiring? Are they recruiting? Are they promoting? What are companies and organizations doing, right? And look at the behavior.
yeah,
Does that make sense? I know right now the political climate is chaotic, and
yes,
I will stop there.
yeah,
And in that climate of uncertainty, people will look at ways to not have a target painted on your back, right? And still understand that it is diversity and inclusion that makes your company successful.
yeah,
All the research, McKinsey, others, all the research shows that the more diverse you have thought, experience, culture, race, religion, everything, right?
yeah,
The more successful your company is going to be, right? The more innovative. Innovation comes from diverse thinking.
yeah,
Innovation doesn't come from groupthink, right? So if your company wants to be innovative, it's in their enlightened self-interest to figure out how to make sure that diversity is continuing to be part of their high performance team strategy. Does that make sense? It's not comfortable, but it is how people cope, right? How corporations are coping these
yeah.
days.
It makes a lot of sense. And what I understand you saying is continue doing the work without the label that brings apprehension.
Right. Right.
Right.
The label that brings that targeted, we're going to take away your contracts. We're going to do something to hit you because you've stood up, right?
Yeah.
Why fight that battle when the real substantive thing is to recruit, develop, retain, promote really good talent of all types, right?
Yes. That's very refreshing to hear because sometimes it can feel like, okay, this is all doom and gloom, but I like how you frame it and phrase it, that we continue doing the work without naming the words or speaking about it in a way that will make the target land on you.
Right. Right.
Yes. You've been a prominent LGBTQ plus advocate, and I'm just wondering if there are any parallels or lessons that we can draw from the LGBTQ plus community in terms of inclusion and how they apply in the economic diversity and inclusion of tech in general.
Well, there are probably a lot of things that will apply. Part of it goes back to being really good at something.
Yes.
Because if you are coming from a community of difference, the LGBTQ plus community, that has always been targeted. It was always okay to hate this community, whether it was because of your religion or your whatever. This was the community that was easy to pick on, right? Easy to target. And so part of the learning for tech is not only in including this difference, do you have innovation? But in this LGBTQ plus community with a lot of acronyms,
Yes.
there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference. If you're looking at two gay men or two lesbian women, right? Or bi or trans or, right? There's a lot of difference. And so the community has learned that our differences help us together, that we're not going to throw away part of this community just to make sure I'm taken care of in this piece. I'm going to stand up for everybody. And in tech, being able to stand up for all of our differences is one of those things that's really really important, because first of all, that means you recognize the differences. We had a human rights campaign banquet back in New York years ago, and one of our IBM senior vice presidents, it was a black tie event. It was a really lovely thing in the Waldorf Astoria, really nice. And he looked around and he said, "Is this a men's organization?" And I said, No, Doug. This is an LGBTQ, well, it was LGBT at that point, group, but it's $300 a plate. And you put two women's salaries together versus two men's salaries together, generally speaking, and the two women can't afford the $300 a plate for two people, $600 to go out for dinner, right? And he went, "Oh my goodness, I'd never thought about it that way." So part of what we've learned in the LGBTQ plus community is to look at how we help each other. Back during the AIDS crisis, when the gay men were really, devastated as a community, it was the lesbians who were sitting by their side, helping them through whatever they were going through at the time, through their illness, through their loss, through their targeting. And as part of the community, we were there for each other. And that's the thing, not only in tech, but in life, right? That we want to bring to our journeys is, how do we build a community of ourselves that looks diverse, that is diverse, that we can learn from, that we can have diverse dialogue about ideas, and and that's really part of how we keep our power, right? Is to make sure that we are helping each other.
Yes, absolutely, helping each other. That's so good. You did contribute to two books that I have seen so far. And I was just wondering, looking back, because the first one was released in 2013 and the second one was in 2014. Do you see an improvement in terms of inclusion at the workplace based on the two books?
So yes, I do. Lord Brown was one of the books, and as a really senior executive and part
Yes.
of the British hierarchies,
Yes.
he made a huge difference coming out,
Yes.
right? And part of what those books helped happen
Yeah.
was for us to be visible.
Yes.
So being visible helps change things. When you are authentic in a room of people, it changes the conversation. It changes how it helps us become ordinary.
Yes.
And that's an important word. I don't use the word normal because that implies abnormal. I use the word ordinary. The other is extraordinary. I'm glad to be extraordinary, but I'm happy to have my life be an ordinary life where my lived experience, how was your weekend,
Yes.
is something that I can truthfully respond to, and as opposed to hiding in the closet. So that's a long answer to those books changed the landscape because it changed the visibility of who we were as an LGBTQ plus community. Because part of what you might not realize is that as a senior exec who had been hiding for a very long time, Lord Brown, right? He not only had to come out as a gay man, but he had to come out as a liar.
Okay.
Right? Because so many folks of that generation made up pronouns for their partners, or made up a fake wife or husband or whatever. And in order just to be included in the conversations of ordinary business, like, how was your weekend? Right? So I had a colleague at IBM who made up a name for his husband and called him Elizabeth for 12 years to say, be able to say, Elizabeth and I went to the theater this weekend. So visibility matters, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, it's just the normalization of people's lives that bring the humanity of the person in question. Yeah. I would definitely like to pick out one of the books, because I think it's sometimes as individuals, we're very boxed up in our environments. I am this and this and this. And then you can empathize with the next person, but you can't truly understand. And just to hear that someone would have a persona of their partner for 12 years would make me, the day that I would find out, would probably make me see them more human and really sympathize with the burdens sort of that they've had to carry all those years. So thank you. I will be happy to read the two. Now we've talked about AI as well. Like you've said, you're telling every young person and pretty much everyone AI. We are at a time where upskilling and reskilling doesn't necessarily feel like a choice or an option. It's something that you should do. Do you feel the same?
Yes, there are inflection points along the way. You wouldn't, in your generation, think, oh, I should learn how to use the computer, right? My generation, that was an upskill, right?
Yeah.
That computers. How do we make these things work? So part of it is we're at that inflection point. So now, yes, it's upskill for those of us who lived before AI and now we're living with AI. It won't be for the next generation that's coming behind us, right? So, use the analogy. Oh, would I go back and not know how to use a computer? No, right? So why would I go back and not know how to use AI? That's just, it becomes a tool. And that's really important for us to look at AI as a tool, not AI as an answer.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, as I've worked with young people, lately in tech, and I've said, let me help you look at AI differently. AI is not something to say, okay, AI, give me the answer. When you've got ChatGPT or whatever, and you've got the answer.
Yeah.
Rather, you need to hone your skills at critical thinking. So rather than say, give me the answer, why didn't you say, give me 3 different perspectives, AI, on this particular problem? Okay, got those perspectives. Now, give me the underlying assumptions that underpin those perspectives. Okay, got that. Now give me the pros and cons of each of those 3 perspectives. Okay, got that. Now use your smarts, use your brain, use your critical thinking as a technology person, as a human person, and say, okay, I've learned about these 3 perspectives. I've learned the assumptions. I've learned the pros and cons. Now I can make an informed decision based on all my humanity, all my critical thinking that I bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of diversity, right?
Yes.
That's that diversity of thought. Let me access different ways of thinking about this problem, right? Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Definitely. I mean, previously it would be asking your mom, asking your best friend, asking someone on the street, maybe if you're comfortable doing that, and then making that decision based on the different advice or opinions that you've gotten. So yeah, I like that.
Well, it's excuse me. It's really important for us in the age where you can filter different opinions out and you can only hear voices that agree with yours. It's important for us to access voices that are disagreeing, that are different, that come from a different point of view.
Yes.
Because then we can access better data, better understanding of each other, better empathy,
Yes.
better science, as we put all of this together. However, if we're not willing to access those types of differences, that's when, we will become more and more and more one-dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the other reason why the drive for the training models to also be diverse, because that way we get the diverse output by using the different AI tools that we're using today. When you speak to leaders and talk to them about AI, what is the conversation around reskilling and upskilling their workforce?
Most times I don't have to have that conversation.
Okay.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
that they need to be using that. The conversation I generally have is about trusted AI, transparent AI. So back to the anti-bias. Do you have models that have bias taken out of them? And then the governance of AI. How do you look at governing what you're getting? Right? How do you make sure that it's not hallucinating, that it's, giving you fair things, based on the granite models you use or other models you use. So it's trust, it's transparency, it's the anti-bias, and it's the governance. Those are the conversations I'm having.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you use AI?
Yes, of course.
Great. Awesome. In what ways? Just for me to get some tips.
Well, they in IBM, they made us all go learn how to use basic AI in terms of chat bots and, being able to, they put us in, let us have teams. We formed their teams and they gave us an AI challenge, and we went and learned how to write a chat bot, and do things together and it was fun. It was interesting. And, we had some young people help the old folks, but we all learned together. So yeah, the chat GPTs of the world, those are becoming like a tool, like a computer is a tool, right? It's important to understand what you get and what you don't get. right? And that's what I
true.
worry about with the younger generation.
Yes, yeah, I understand what you mean because sometimes they don't even have a prior reference point,
That's
which
right.
could be harder. But yeah,
And it's how
that's
you ask the question, right?
yes,
How you ask the question is going to give you different responses.
definitely. Okay, we're running out of time, but I would like to know from your. I wish we could go on and talk because there's lots of questions that I still have in and around leadership, especially for women, how it looks. I would like to go into global talent and equity, but for now, I would just like to know, in your experience, what is the real dividend of diversity for companies, for innovation, and for society? Is there a moment when you look back and just based on your experience where you've seen it play out in a positive and tangible way?
Well, there are many things to
Yeah.
answer your question. There are many examples of how that has played out, whether it's a diverse team that's created a wonderful innovative solution to a client's problem, right? To or created a new piece of software or created a new opportunity for a business model. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of examples there. And so it's really more about where you go from there,
Okay.
right? What do you do with that? Are you willing to recognize that innovation matters? A guy by the name of Richard Florida did some studies, and those years back, and he saw that the most innovative areas of the U.S., this was a U.S.-based study, were the areas that were more liberal, that were more tolerant of difference. So Silicon Valley, right? The San Francisco area, that was a really innovative place. We all know that is to be an innovative place. At the time, Austin, Boston, these were places that were very tolerant of difference, right? Very accepting of difference. And they were where the think tanks were locating. And those were where, companies wanted to be and grow and start up. So understanding that tolerance of difference, welcoming difference is and has been for years correlated with innovation.
Yes, that's a really good one. It has been almost like the catalyst for innovation. All right, before I let you go, any advice that you would have for a person that identifies as being diverse, looking to grow perhaps in their career, tech maybe particularly, what should they be doing right now?
Well, in addition to having good skills, right, being very good at something, which we all need to do,
Yes.
being able to tap into your own authenticity and keep your personal power. One of the things that somebody very wise taught me long ago was, what you think of me is none of my business. And then I am able to say, okay, I'm not going to give away my power to you or to you or to you. I'm going to keep my power, be good at what I do, claim my authenticity, and really be able to also claim my vulnerabilities as somebody who's different. But one of my friends who was an HR person said, Claudia, nobody's ever come to me for a job and said, you really need to hire me because I'm just like everybody else. And I thought, you're right, Ken. That's when we have to claim that those authentic parts of ourselves, our value propositions, right?
Yes.
our value propositions mean that we're different. We're bringing something different. You know, we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, right? Not because, oh, I'm just like everybody else, that's why you should hire me, right? But rather I am bringing value, and I can articulate that value to you as a company, to you as an organization, to you as a community, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I wish we can go deeper. I have many follow-up questions, but for today, I just want to say thank you once again. I feel very honored and privileged to have a conversation with you. I hope that we can talk again in the future, because it's been a lot of nuggets, a lot of wisdom that need to be downloaded and consumed, and even more and expanded on. But I'm truly grateful for your time. So thank you for being on the Tech Girl podcast.
Well, you're very welcome. I would be glad to talk with you sometime in the future. And one other little bit of advice before I go is make sure everybody who's listening goes and finds a mentor. Find a mentor who can help you navigate. And they may become an advocate, but importantly, let's start with a mentor. Right. Yes. And you can have multiple mentors, because we all need mentoring on different topics. Women who want to have families. How do you navigate that in a business? Or, you know, AI. I want mentoring on tech. But have a mentor, have multiple mentors, because that's going to help your journey along the way.
Where do you find them?
You ask for them.
Perfect.
You ask for them. So I have 3 rules really quickly. 1, somebody has to ask me to be their mentor. Number 2, they have to understand I might not have calendar integrity, because mentoring is important but very seldom urgent. So a client meeting or something else might take precedent, but I'll reschedule. And 3, they have to mentor somebody else. So if the person asks, takes the initiative to get on my calendar once a month, once a quarter, once, a year, whatever, and does those other things, understands that I might not have calendar integrity and that they have to mentor somebody else. Mentoring happens when you can take control. You as the mentee, the protege, take control. The matched mentor, where it's kind of forced from the top down, doesn't always work. But if you as the mentee, protege, will ask for what you want and be willing to do those 3 things, it'll work.
I have taken down notes, Claudia, I will say. You will
Very
be
good.
hearing from me soon.
All right. Lovely.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. What stays with me the most about my conversation with Claudia is her steadiness. She reminds us that inclusion doesn't always have to look loud. It looks like preparation, sometimes getting mentorship, while other times it's just insisting that underrepresented leaders get the same opportunity to fail, as I mentioned before. That one really stood out for me. And if this episode stood out for you, share it with someone who's navigating leadership, tech, change, a transition, and just remind them that inclusion well done is not a risk, it's a competitive advantage. I'm Gertrude, and this has been the Tech Girl Podcast. Goodbye.